Hello, everyone, and welcome at the Cusp of Freedom, where we speak about why and how we become who we are. Speak a little bit and have a conversation about the problems of our world and what we can do in our individual lives to make this place better for those coming after us. My name is Marvin Tikio, and today I have a very special guest, Elena. And today we'll be speaking on how she became who she is, why and how she became who she is. And just as a reminder, this is not an inspirational video or an inspirational podcast. This podcast is simply for you to understand what we do and how we became who we are so that you can become just like one of us or better. Without further ado, we'll jump straight right into it. Elena, how did you become... First of all, can you tell us who you are and why you became who you are?
Who I am? That is such a big question. My name's Alena. I claim that I'm from Houston, Texas. I've moved around all over the country in the U.S. I've lived in 6 different states. I'm not from the military, anything like that. My family's not military affiliated. I just had a crazy life. With a single mom who's raised me, I really credit a lot to her on who I am today. But I am a Christian, so I'm a daughter of Jesus Christ. I am a sister, I'm a daughter. I just graduated, so now I'm an employee, no longer a student. And I'm a digital nomad, and now I'm traveling full time. So that is who I am.
Oh, wow. So how did you become a digital nomad? And what are some challenges that you went through in order to become a digital nomad?
100%. So how I started becoming a digital nomad is that back in earlier this year, I was in school and I was applying to all these jobs, in person, hybrid, all online. And so I landed a fully remote job. And whenever that happened, honestly, I was a little overwhelmed because I'm like, I could go anywhere. So I wasn't tied down to any location. If I want to go in the office, I can, which they're headquartered in Austin, Texas. I'm from Houston. So it is an option to go back to Texas, but I didn't feel like the longing to go back.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, I'm like, where can I go? And the world is my oyster. I mean, after COVID, now I could really go anywhere. Yeah. And I'm not tied down to anything. I don't have a lease. I don't have a pet or a family that I have to tend to. So I was thinking, like, why not travel the world? And my mom did study abroad for 2 years. She loved it so much. She kept extending it. And so about every 6 weeks, she moved to a new country, try out something new, and she said it changed her life. And so after I landed this remote job back in April, I was thinking, I'm like, okay, now that I have this remote job and the freedom, where do I go? And I have one friend who went all over Colombia. He backpacked, though. He didn't work. And he said that it changed his life, too. And he's like, you should go to Colombia. I'm like, me? He's like, yeah, you. I'm like, by myself? And he's like, yes, you should. And I'm like, is it safe? And he's like, of course it is. And so he was telling me all these tips, where to go, and he really encouraged me to do it. And so I was thinking to myself, I'm like, can I do this? I'm like, wait, I know I can do this. So I did a lot of research on where to go, how to get cheap flights, meeting people, staying in hostels. It has been a whole journey. I feel like I could write a book. And now I'm on a podcast. So this is just wild on my whole journey to Colombia. But that is the backstory on how I got here today.
Oh, wow. That sounds like an amazing story I think we can all relate to, especially me. So when you went to college, what did you study to get into this digital nomad space? And if you could go back and do anything better, would you? What would you do?
Oh my goodness. Okay, I don't want to look back at my life and, feel like I regret something. I do feel like everything happens for a reason. I know it is. I know that we're a part of a plan. I know we're a part of God's plan, and it always works out. God's plan, baby. But anyways, when I went into college, I went into school as a bio major.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And that has nothing to do with what I'm doing today, so clearly that was very short-lived. I originally was on the pre-med track. I wanted to do dermatology, really into skincare, things like that, and I was really good at science in high school. And then I went to college, and I'm like, never mind. Whatever I thought I was good at, I was not good at. So quickly I realized it wasn't for me. So my sophomore year, I changed my major to marketing. And I thought that was definitely more my speed. It fit me. I met people that had similar personalities, and they were all interested in the same things that I was interested in, like meeting new people, making relationships, but also having the business side. So it was a perfect fit for me. And then I added a second major on advertising, which I like to be creative as well.
Yeah.
And so the perfect combination I thought for me was marketing and advertising, and that's what I graduated in.
Okay.
But now I'm working in sales. And so it's hard to tell right now. I'm in training until the end of October. But so far I like the people that I'm working with.
Great.
Which I feel like I could do anything if I like the people that I'm working with. I think people make a world of a difference. So we'll see if I like it when I'm actually enrolled, but I loved marketing.
Oh wow, that sounds amazing. So what are some? Why do you love marketing? Besides the fact that you can meet people and collaborate and share ideas, I guess.
Oh, I think that marketing can take one business to the next level. So one of my professors explained, like, why do you go to a certain chain of restaurants when they basically all have the same thing? He was like, okay, let's talk about burgers. He's like, McDonald's has one, Burger King has one. They're all similar ingredients. Why do you go to one versus the other? And the things that the class mentioned were all basically marketing.
Wow.
Like, oh, one has better commercials, one has a better experience, and they highlight that. Wendy's has a funny social media, and that brings people in. So I'm like, okay, how do we be creative to get from one place to the next and rise above the competition? And I will say I'm a little competitive, so I love it. I'm like, how do we know our competition, know where we are in the marketplace, and take us to the next level?
Wow. So you went into a field that you felt passionate about, and you made the best out of it by landing a remote job. And now it's taking you to the next level where you can actually do things and experience life from a whole new perspective by meeting other people. And wow, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So how long have you been traveling for, and how long do you plan on traveling for? What has traveling taught you?
Oh wow, okay, that is a big question too. So I've been traveling since July, basically. My lease ended in the middle of July, so I went to school in Alabama. So I went from Alabama back to Texas for a few days.
Okay.
Then I stayed with my boyfriend's family, so generous of them to let me, for a month in Chicago. Like, y'all don't know how much that means to me. And then I went to New York. He had a unpaid opportunity, but the accommodations were paid for in New York. And the flight was less than $100 to get from Chicago to New York, because I booked it in advance, and it was a one-way.
Okay.
And so I booked that, stayed in New York for a week, loved New York, and I'm like, when else will I get the opportunity? You never know.
You never know.
So I'm like, I'm gonna go, although it was right around the week. And then I was looking at cheap flights from New York to Colombia that week after, because I had my eyes set on Colombia while I was in Chicago.
Okay. So when you got to New York, you kind of spontaneously booked your trip to Colombia because it was in the back of your mind.
Right.
Wow, okay.
So right before the New York trip, I booked it to Colombia.
Okay.
Because he was leaving to go back to Alabama, and I'm like, okay, this is where we're parting ways.
Okay.
I have to have a next move.
I'm not going back to Alabama.
Right.
All
Oh no, I love Alabama. It was great for school, but for living full time, that is another story. So yes, I knew that I had to make a move, and so I made the leap. I made the jump, and I went to Cartagena, and my flight was really cheap there. I booked a one-way, which also felt really weird because, especially going out of the country, that was the first time I ever did that.
And not knowing when you'll come back.
Exactly. And so I did that for a reason. I'm like, if I hate it, I can come back the next week, and I'll go back with my family. I'll do something, at least to get me some time, because I wasn't sure. I'm like, I've done all the research. People have encouraged me. Should I really do it? You're always going to have those questions of doubt in the back of your head. And so I booked it. I'm so thankful that I did. And then also I learned so much just by speaking with people. So when I was in Cartagena, I mentioned even the thought of Medellin, and they were like, oh, you should go. And so that encouragement.
Word of mouth.
Yes, word of mouth is so big. And the reputation. I learned so much just from speaking to others, more than I did online, honestly. Because it's people who have recently been, they kind of know me a little bit, they can make recommendations for me, and so it felt more personalized, and that way I can ask questions too. So that was amazing. And then, so from Cartagena, which is more of, I would say, a weekend location, like for a few days.
Yeah.
And I was there for 10 days. And so I cycled through France 3 times.
Because everybody was only there for a weekend.
Yes, because everyone was only there for a few days. And so I'm like, okay, well, this is a little bit challenging because people are in and out. I can't make real relationships.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I did meet amazing people, and it did brought me to Medellin. But I'm very thankful to be in Medellin where people are doing this full time.
Yeah.
And they're actually living here. And so that was very comforting for me to find. And I didn't find that in Cartagena. And so then I booked my flight to Bogota again because I was speaking to people and they're like, you should just go for the experience. It's the capital of the country. Yeah. There's so much to do there. There's a lot of competition between Medellin and Bogota. That's right.
Well, who do you think wins?
I haven't been to Bogota.
I've been to Bogota. I think Medellin wins, but maybe we'll get your opinion next time.
Yes, we will have to. It's hard to top Medellin, I will say.
Yeah.
So it set the bar really high, so we're going to see. But just by speaking to people, and then I have my flights basically booked up until the end of October. Then after that, I'm not quite sure, but I want to make this last as long as possible because when else in my life will I have the opportunity? I might be called into the office for a job, my next job, or who knows when.
Who knows when, yeah.
So now is the time, and I want to take advantage.
Live in the moment.
That's right.
Wow, that's some pretty deep words there. So, for example, if someone watching this podcast right now wants to become a digital nomad like you and take your path, what are some challenges they should expect, and what are some things that you would advise them to look into before they jump into college and decide to go down your path?
Wow. Okay. So there are a few things to keep in mind, of course. You have to keep in mind a budget because I know Colombia, like a US dollar, it goes a long way in Colombia, but it is so easy to just swipe your card, say yes to everything. I am a big yes person, but I found myself, of course, saying no to things because in Cartagena nobody really was a digital nomad, so they'd be like, come out with us tonight, let's do this, let's do that. And I was so grateful to be asked to be a part of things and to join things. So that is such a good problem to have, but I did have to say no because I do have the working responsibility. It's funding myself, it's funding my trip, so I knew I had to say no to some things, but to be open-minded too. You don't want to keep yourself in a box because you never know what might present the opportunity to go do. So I would say yes, but also say no. Be your own best friend is what I would say. Like, you have your back at the end of the day. You're going to meet people, but somebody might not tell you like, hey, your shirt's messed up in the back. Yeah. Or this is going on. You have to be your own best friend. Make sure that you have a ride at the end of the night. That you have the Uber app installed on your phone, that you have cash in case anything goes wrong, that you have a portable charger. Just being prepared, taking those extra steps. Again, being your own best friend, I think that has been huge because in this crazy life, I know that I'm a constant.
Wow, okay.
And I have myself at the end of the day. I'm like,
that's
just in case anything happens.
Wow, that's a very, very deep perspective to have. I think it's very right too because it's best to be with yourself or be best with yourself, and I feel like it's best to be comfortable being alone or being self-sustainable or independent.
It's challenging,
but if you love the challenges, then
I'm such a people person, and that's one thing I was really nervous about. I asked myself, I'm like, what if I don't make one friend? What if nobody speaks English? I have very limited Spanish, and so at the end of the day, I had to ask myself, I'm like, is this something I'm willing to do completely alone, in case? And I answered my question. I'm like, yeah, I do want to do this.
Wow, it takes a lot of courage.
It does.
Especially as a woman, not stereotypically, but society, I don't know, views women in a lesser way than men in general. Yeah. And I think taking that risk as a woman takes a lot more courage than it would a guy,
yeah. I think so too. Definitely. And completely being by yourself is totally different too, because I normally am the person in the group that's go with the flow, do what they're doing. They haven't decided, just join in. And that is a good position to be in, to be spontaneous, going with the flow. doing whatever. But it's also important to make your own decisions.
Yeah.
And to be independent and to have an opinion. And that is one thing that I can struggle with at times, is being direct and making a decision. And so that's one of my goals while traveling. I want to be more independent. I want to be content with myself.
Wow. So do you feel as though traveling helps you, helps challenge your ability to be more opinionated and learn more about yourself? Do you think traveling helps you become a better person overall?
Oh yeah, definitely. It has opened my eyes to the people that live here, that are local to here, their opinions. When I was in Cartagena, I met so many Europeans, and they asked me so many questions about being from the US, and they have these totally different mindsets.
Yeah.
They've never been, they've never seen it. Just like people have an opinion about Colombia, and then they come here and it's so different. Exactly. And so that has really opened my eyes to perspectives. And also even the way that we eat here. It takes a much longer time than in the US. I've worked at a restaurant before. They're trying to flip tables. You're trying to get in, you're trying to get out. Like in the US, it's a business mindset.
Yeah.
But here, they're like, oh, take your time. Like I have to go up to the person and ask for the check because they will never leave it on the table for me. So it's very different, and I'm learning things here and there and things that I want to adopt.
Wow.
I'm like, wow, that is such a beautiful way to say it, or such a kind mannerism that I want to pick up and I want to add into me.
Wow, maybe they just appreciate the value of the dollar, but I guess so. I guess so. So now that we ran through how and why you became who you are, and what you expect from your life going forward, just like traveling and meeting more people and exploring different places of the world. What do you think are some of the main problems of our world, and what do you think is something we can do on a personal level to make it a domino effect on a global level so that people can live better experiences?
Wow. Again, you're asking these really big questions. So our world is broken. I hate to say it, but it's true. I think that nobody's perfect. The only person, I've talked to you about this, the only person is Jesus.
Yeah.
That's truly perfect. We all have stolen, lied. We've all wronged.
Yeah, we've all sinned.
Yes, 100%. And so, of course, we're forgiven. Thank you, God, that we're forgiven, and we give grace to one another. So I think one big thing is that to keep in mind and with perspective is that everybody's broken.
Yeah.
Everybody's had hard things in their life. But doing our best to represent Christ, I should say, in the world. Giving and not expecting anything in return.
Wow, that's a big one. I think, yeah.
It is so big, and I struggle all the time. Of course, like when a friend's like, hey, I need you right now, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to cover them. I'm not going to expect anything in return. And that has been a shift in my mindset completely. And I'm like, no matter what happens to me, God is still good. I'm going to be provided for. And it's been really eye-opening here. I'm sure that you've noticed too, like the people are on the streets and my heart breaks.
Yeah.
My heart breaks. Those kids in the street, I'm like, I want to provide for them. But I know that they're going to be provided for.
Yeah.
And so I want to give to them and I want to help them. But I need to work on myself too, like practicing Spanish so that I'm able to tell them where it's coming from.
Yeah.
And it's not coming from me.
Yeah, it's coming from a higher power.
That's right.
Or higher self. So would you say one of the key things we can do on a personal level is just by representing Christ and doing things that we feel we would like to be done to ourselves, like giving without expecting anything in return?
Yeah, I think of course, we can't control anybody else except ourselves.
Yeah.
So I think it starts by leading with example. Yeah.
Okay.
So when you're in a group, acting different, people are gonna notice. It's almost like you asking me to be on this podcast. I'm so honored. And I'm so glad that you asked me. But I'm like, I hope that people see that in me.
I do. I do.
Like,
I
she's
do.
different. I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be different. Okay. I really do. And I think that traveling has made me different. I want to be looked at like, okay, there's something about her. We can't put our finger on it. And I hope that that's Christ through everything.
Oh my God. Yeah, hell yeah. Definitely. Wow. It's been an immense pleasure having you on this podcast, Elena. Is there any last key word of advice you would want to leave our audience here with today?
Oh man, let's see here. If you're considering it, do it. The time is now. Tomorrow is never promised. It really is never promised. COVID, 19, 20, 21, 22, whatever, could come tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so the time is now. Yesterday's gone. So, of course, it's scary. You got to make the jump. You have to be mindful, but we can't live in fear.
You have to live in faith, right?
That's right. That's right. Walk by faith, not by sight.
There you go, guys. That's a very strong word of advice. Walk with faith and not fear, and be yourself. And it's been an immense pleasure having you on this podcast, Elena.
I'm gonna miss that. I already want to be back.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to. When I get better at this podcast, we'll probably have a round 2 interview. But for now, it's been an immense pleasure, and I'm so lucky to have you on this podcast and to be able to call you a friend. And thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely honored to be here. And we have to update each other because this is just the beginning of our journey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah, beginning of the podcast, too. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Let's see how long we last.
That was so fun. Let's do it again.
23 minutes. 23 minutes, pretty good.
Yeah, you had great questions.
I'm trying to keep it short too because
so it's interesting.
So people don't get bored, like you get the advice you need and then move on.
So when is this gonna be posted? When should I need to, first off, let me follow you on Spotify.
I think you do follow me.
On Spotify.
Oh, on Spotify. Okay.
Yes.